Hello people of the tube and welcome back to another review. This time reviewing the film Deadtime Stories, a horror anthology film with three different stories, each kind of taking inspiration from Grimm's fairy tales. And the story holding all these miniature stories together would be an uncle telling his nephew all these stories, these dead time stories or bedtime stories, and yeah, that's about it. But the first story is about two witches who want to find and bring their sister back from the dead, uh, and they have to kill people to do it. The second story is about this girl who was hanging out with her boyfriend, and she went to a drugstore and got the wrong medicine. So this guy, who didn't get his right medicine, becomes a werewolf, tries to kill her grandma, and there you go. And the third story is Goldilocks and the Three Bears, but instead they're all humans and they're all mental patients who kill people. Oh, and Goldilocks has like psychic abilities, like she can grab you and throw you across rooms and basically carry, if you will. Well, if it wasn't for the last story, I'd say this movie isn't worth your time watching. But actually, it'd be fortunately, but fortunately, the last story is extremely fun and enjoyable to watch. The first story is kind of boring. The characters aren't memorable at all, except for maybe the witches. The main witch actually has a lot of like facial movements. It's kind of funny to look at, and the second witch actually has a personality. Other than that, there's really no redeeming factor other than maybe the special effects. This movie actually has pretty good special effects. It reminds me of Hellraiser, the first Hellraiser. There's a scene where their sister's being brought back to life, and you can see like parts of her growing back on her corpse and stuff. It reminds me a lot of Uncle Frank's scene in Hellraiser, which I love that scene. Well, I mean, I love that movie in general, but I love that scene because it shows you how creative that film is and how good the special effects are. And that's what this did. The special effects for this section were really good. The second story about the grandmother and the werewolf, none of the acting was great. None of the characters were really memorable. The werewolf, the design didn't really stand out for me. It's nothing memorable at all. Like, if I had to compare it to any other werewolf movies, maybe more of a Wolfman type thing. Definitely not when put on like my list of yeah, you got to watch this werewolf thing. Um, but the third story is actually really fun. Basically, it starts out the two Papa Bear and Baby Bear. Baby Bear is this like really tall giant guy, and he talk like this. And Papa Bear is kind of like Matilda's dad from the movie Matilda, except he's just unnecessarily violent, and he'll just kind of like slap Baby Bear for no reason, and it's kind of funny. Not to mention, Baby Bear will be like, can we stop and get food?" And he's like, "No." And it's just kind of funny. Goldilocks actually has she's really enjoyable to watch when she like kills people. And she's like, "Oh yeah, you'll enjoy being next to him." She has an enjoyable personality, and the mom plays it like a mom, the mama bear, and it's just an enjoyable section. It makes the whole movie for me. I would say if you're ever going to watch a Dead Time story, just skip to the final story. It's definitely a fun watch. That last part, it's so stupid. It's so goofy. It's over the top, but it's fun. It's really fun to watch. That last story. And of course, wrapping it up. Spoilers if you haven't seen this or you don't want to know how it ends. Of course, any other anthology film, it's gonna have the jump scare twist whatever where the boy gets eaten by a monster because during each segment after each segment ends he always uncle come in here blah 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 because there's a monster and there's never a monster, and then of course at the end there's a monster. You see it coming a million miles away. But this movie is definitely worth watching for the third story. It's really entertaining. Actually, kind of reminds me of VHS, first VHS, because the first VHS has that succubus story, and basically that's pretty much the only reason to watch that movie at this point. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad movie. It's definitely not as bad as the third VHS, but the succubus from that film is really good. That story's really good, and Deadtime story is the best part of this. Is the Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It definitely stands out, and that's the only reason to really watch it. If I had to give this like a number scale, I would probably give it a 6 out of 10. And if it wasn't for Goldilocks, I would have probably gave it a 4. And thumbs up for the Goldilocks story, but if it didn't have that, this would have definitely been a thumbs down. So check it out. At least check out the Goldilocks story, because the rest of the movie really isn't worth your time. So, peace.